Ever get that sinking feeling? Like you're in a concrete maze, wandering through an underground parking garage, keys in hand, maybe a little stressed from whatever you were doing, and now all you want is to find your car. You're definitely not alone if that sounds
Well,
familiar.
yeah, it's a surprisingly universal frustration, isn't it?
Yeah.
That moment of complete disorientation in a space that should be fundamentally simple, just a place to park.
Right. And today, we're diving deep into some really fascinating research that tackled this very problem head on. We've got a study here from the Journal of Asian Architecture and Building Engineering, and it's all about how to design parking garages, specifically the maps and signs, so they actually work for you, the driver.
hmm And for this deep dive, our source is the work of Mengkong Zheng. He investigated wayfinding in the Fukan Car Park, which, as we learned, is the largest underground parking garage in Taipei City.
Hmm.
This wasn't just someone taking notes. It involved detailed experiments with real people, just like us,
Yeah.
trying to navigate and find a specific parking spot.
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack for you today. We'll look at the core findings, highlight the real stumbling blocks people face in these underground spaces, and reveal some surprisingly simple but incredibly effective solutions that came out of this research.
Yeah, simple but effective.
Think of this as your personal shortcut to understanding why getting lost in a parking garage happens and what can actually be done about it. Okay, let's unpack this. What were the fundamental problems they first identified when they looked at this car park?
Well, the study started with a basic assessment of the existing wayfinding tools of the Fukin Car Park, the signage and the maps. And right away, they found some really fundamental flaws.
Basic flaws, I bet. Like
Yeah.
what?
Well, one key finding, and this is almost comical, was that some of the maps weren't even installed correctly. They weren't facing the direction a user would be approaching from.
Wait, seriously, so the map was pointing the wrong way.
Yeah. Can you imagine trying to use a map that's essentially backwards from where you're standing? It highlights the fundamental need for any info system to be anchored to your perspective, right?
Oh, that's just setting you up to fail before you even start. It's like trying to read directions where north is suddenly south or something.
Exactly. Beyond that, the study found that parking space numbers were often missing or presented in a completely illogical sequence, just
Mm.
gone or jumping around.
Oh, great.
So if you're relying on those numbers to find your car after, like a long shopping trip, that kind of inconsistency is going to add a lot of unnecessary time and stress to your experience.
So you've got maps pointing the wrong way and a numbering system that seems to make no sense. Sounds like a recipe for that rising feeling of panic we talked about.
It is. And to really understand your experience as someone trying to navigate this environment, the researchers didn't just look at the static signs and maps. They conducted a wayfinding experiment.
Mm.
They got people who had never been to the Ziqing car park before. Their task was straightforward. Find a specific parking spot number 136, starting from exit 2.
Okay, so a real world test with fresh eyes. That makes perfect sense to see the challenges you might face. How did they track how people were doing as they tried to find this spot?
They used a couple of really insightful methods to understand the process from your perspective. One was a think aloud protocol.
Think aloud.
Yeah, they asked participants to just say whatever they were thinking as they navigated. This gave the researchers a window into their decision-making, like where they were getting confused, what assumptions they were making, what strategies they were trying.
Oh, interesting. So they could hear in real time those moments where you think, wait, did I miss a turn? Is this even the right area?
Exactly, those little hesitations and questions. And to complement that, they also used video recordings to track the participants' physical movements, things like detours, the total distance they walked searching, and the total time it took them. This provided objective data to back up this subjective stuff from the Think Aloud protocol, giving a really comprehensive picture of the challenges you might face.
And what were the initial results? I'm guessing it wasn't a quick and easy process for most people, given the bad maps and numbers.
Not at all. The initial results were quite telling. While, okay, the quickest person managed to find the spot in a little over 2 minutes,
Pretty good.
the average time was significantly longer, over 5 minutes. And some participants took like twice as long as that minimum time. It really highlighted how inefficient the existing system was for many people, and potentially for you too.
Wow, a 5-minute search in a busy parking garage can feel like an eternity when you're carrying bags or trying to make it to an appointment.
It absolutely can. And a major issue that emerged from the Think Aloud data was how people were using the parking space numbers. They heavily relied on them, which makes sense, right, if you're trying to pinpoint a specific spot.
Yeah, you look for the number.
but they often incorrectly assumed that these numbers were directly related to the area numbers marked on the columns. Like area B should have spots to B1 to B100 or something.
Ah, okay. They tried to impose a logic that wasn't there.
Exactly.
Hmm.
This mismatch in expectations, assuming a clear link between different data points, was a huge source of confusion, particularly in an area they called row 10. People got really turned around there.
So the logic that people were naturally trying to apply just didn't line up with the actual way the garage was organized? That's incredibly frustrating when you're trying to be efficient.
Precisely. The study also revealed some interesting correlations with driving experience that might resonate with you. People who drove less frequently tended to struggle more.
Really?
Yeah. They took longer, made more wrong turns, and ended up walking significantly further than those who were more frequent drivers.
That makes intuitive sense, I guess. More experienced drivers probably have a better mental model of how parking garages generally work, maybe, so they have some framework to fall back on, even if it's flawed.
That's likely part of it. And it wasn't just about individual experience. The environment itself played a role that could impact you directly. The presence of more parked cars significantly increased the likelihood of people getting lost.
Oh, yeah. Visibility goes way down.
Right. Obstructions, limited visibility, it all contributed to the difficulty of navigating.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces are hidden or out of order.
That's a good analogy. And perhaps most striking from your perspective as someone trying to use the provided tools, only half of the participants were actually able to find the parking space using the existing maps.
Only half.
Only half.
Wow.
The majority ended up abandoning the maps and just relying solely on looking at the numbers painted on the ground, scanning row by row.
Wow. So the very thing designed to help you navigate was essentially useless for half the people trying to use it. Okay, so they've clearly identified a lot of problems that I'm sure many of us have experienced. What did they come up with as a solution? What did this new map design look like that aimed to address these issues for you?
Okay, so based on those initial findings, the researchers designed a completely new map. The most critical change they made, and this directly addresses that common incorrect assumption you might make, was that they correlated the area number with the specific range of parking space numbers located within that area.
Ah, that's the key piece of information that was missing before for you. So instead of just seeing, say, area C and then a seemingly random set of parking space numbers nearby, the map would explicitly say area C spaces 300, 399, or whatever.
Exactly. Making that link explicit, it underscores the critical importance of establishing clear, logical relationships between different data points within any system.
Yeah, absolutely. And what else?
They also made a point of not grouping neighboring parking spaces together on the map if their numbers weren't consecutive.
Okay. Why was that?
Well, to avoid the confusion you might feel when seeing a block on the map that implies, say, spaces 101 through 110, but then you find space 105 is actually missing or somewhere else entirely, they kept the visual representation true to the actual layout.
Gotcha. That small detail probably makes a big difference in reducing those, wait, where did number 104 go? I thought it should be right here.
Man.
Moments that you've likely experienced.
It does. And to test the effectiveness of this new map in helping people like you, they conducted a second experiment.
Right.
This time, it was on a different floor of the same car park.
No.
With a new group of participants. Again, same task. Find spot home 36 from exit 2. But there was a new element this time.
What was that new element?
Before they started walking, they asked the participants to plan their route using the new map and to verbally describe their intended path.
Okay.
This gave the researchers insight into how well the new map actually communicated the layout and numbering system to someone like you trying to figure it out beforehand.
So it wasn't just about whether they could eventually find it, but how confident they were in their plan and how easily they could understand the map from the get-go.
Precisely. And the results were really encouraging for improving your parking experience. On average, the time it took participants to find the parking spot decreased by about 50 seconds with the new map.
Nearly a minute faster.
Yeah. And they also made fewer detours and walked shorter distances overall, less wandering around.
A 50-second reduction might not sound huge on paper, but when you're tired or in a hurry, that can feel like a significant amount of time saved and a lot less frustration, right?
Absolutely. Every second counts sometimes. And perhaps even more significant for you as a driver in these situations was the reduction in people reporting that they lost direction.
Ah, that feeling of being totally turned around.
Exactly. That happened much less frequently with the new map. When it did occur, it was often when individuals still mistakenly assumed That old, illogical correlation between area and parking space numbers.
Even with the new map.
Yeah, even though the new design aimed to correct that, it just shows how ingrained those initial assumptions can be even when you're presented with a better system. Habits are hard to break.
Yeah. It's like their brains were still trying to apply the old, broken logic even when a better way was presented. Interesting.
Exactly. But the think aloud data from this second experiment was also revealing for understanding your thought process. It showed that with the new map, people felt they needed to gather less initial environmental information. They weren't scanning around as much at the start.
Oh, okay.
They were relying more on the clearly marked parking space numbers and the more logical organization of the map itself to guide them.
So the map became a more effective primary tool for you rather than something to be glanced at and then abandoned in favor of just driving around and scanning the ground.
Exactly. It empowered them to navigate more confidently right from the start.
Okay, so based on these experiments, what were the key elements that really contributed to effective map design in these environments that could benefit you directly?
Well, connecting those area numbers and parking space numbers was obviously crucial for you.
Right, that linkage.
But the analysis of the participants' route descriptions really highlighted several other key wayfinding elements that are likely important for you too. Things like districts, those defined areas with number ranges and the edges of these districts, they served as important reference points in people's mental maps.
Okay, so breaking it down into zones.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the actual range of parking space numbers within each district was vital information for them to orient themselves. Knowing, I'm looking for 1036, that's in the 1099 district.
So people were thinking in terms of zones and the numerical boundaries of those zones as they tried to find their way. Makes sense.
Precisely. And not surprisingly for helping you orient yourself, clearly marked entrances and exits also functioned as significant landmarks within the larger space. Big, obvious reference points.
Those are the natural anchor points, right? Knowing where you came in or where you can leave is always a fundamental piece of information. You got to know how to get out.
Exactly. Based on all this observation of how people like you navigate, the study suggests that effective parking garage map design really needs to prioritize dividing the garage into these logical districts with clear numbering and ensuring entrances and exits are highly visible on the map and making all the information easily understandable at a glance.
Makes perfect sense from a user perspective. Simplicity and clarity seem to be the most important things when you're just trying to find your car after a long day.
Absolutely. The research also touched on how parking space numbers are typically arranged in Taiwan, either in a zigzag pattern or sequentially in the same direction down a row.
Okay.
And they suggest the latter, where numbers consistently increase or decrease within a row, is likely more user-friendly for you, more predictable.
Yeah, a consistent pattern just feels inherently more intuitive and less likely to trip you up than a back and forth zigzag, doesn't it?
It avoids those moments where you think you're following a sequence, only to have it suddenly reverse direction, leading to confusion and backtracking. And the study really underscores the need to explicitly correlate those area numbers with the range of parking spaces within them and to prominently display this connection on the maps so it's clear for you. No more guessing games.
Right, make the implicit logic explicit so it's easy for anyone to understand. What about visual cues that might help you, like color coding? Did they look at that?
They did look at that. The study recommends using different colors to designate different areas within the garage.
Okay.
The reasoning behind this is pretty interesting. People tend to process colors more quickly than they process shapes and words.
Oh, really? Faster than words.
Apparently so. So using distinct colors can create immediate mental landmarks for you and make it easier to quickly differentiate between different zones without having to read everything.
That's a great point. You can immediately get a sense of where the blue section is versus the green section without even having to read the fine print, especially from a distance.
Exactly. And finally, the strategic placement of these maps is crucial for you to actually use them. It's no good having a great map if it's hidden.
Right. The study suggests putting them at the edges of areas or at intersections where they're easily visible and not likely to be obscured by parked cars or columns.
Yeah, it's no good having a perfectly designed map if you can't actually find it or see it clearly when you need it most.
Precisely. So the study provides a really comprehensive set of guidelines for creating more effective wayfinding systems in these underground environments, all focused on making it easier for you, the user.
It sounds like a lot of common sense when you lay it all out like this, but clearly Many existing parking garages aren't following these basic principles, leading to frustration for drivers like you every day.
That's often the case with user-centered design, isn't it? The solutions can seem obvious in hindsight, but understanding the actual user experience through research, like this study did, is what leads to those insights that can directly benefit you. You have to see where people actually struggle. So this study focused on improving the here and now with better maps and signage to help you today. But did they touch on any future possibilities? Like, what's the next frontier for making sure you don't get lost in a parking garage?
They did touch on some interesting future directions that could really change how you navigate these spaces eventually.
Yeah.
One area they mentioned is the potential of indoor localization technology.
Like GPS, but inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Similar tech, but designed for enclosed spaces where GPS signals don't reach well. Think about using your smartphone to pinpoint your exact location within the garage,
Uh-huh.
and even guide you directly back to your parked car, like turn-by-turn directions to your spot.
Oh, that would be a complete game changer for you. No more circling and squinting, trying to remember which level, which row.
Exactly. Total game changer. And they also suggested that future research should delve into the broader environmental design elements that could complement the new map design and further improve your wayfinding experience.
Meaning, what kind of elements?
Things like lighting, architectural cues, maybe different shapes or textures in different zones, and even the materials used in different areas could potentially play a role in making the space more intuitive for you.
So it's not just about the maps, it's about creating a more intuitive overall environment for you to navigate using subconscious cues too.
Precisely. The map is a crucial tool, absolutely, but it works best within a space that is also thoughtfully designed with your navigation and orientation in mind.
Okay, so after this deep dive into the Fucana Car Park study, what's the big takeaway for listeners? What's the main thing you should remember the next time you're venturing into one of these concrete jungles?
I think the core message for you is this: a clear and logical organization of parking spaces, combined with well-designed maps that clearly link area numbers with the corresponding parking space ranges, and utilize helpful visual cues like color. All of that can dramatically improve your entire experience.
Right.
Getting to and from your car doesn't have to be a stressful ordeal for you. It can be made much simpler.
And what was that aha moment for you from this research? What was the most surprising or insightful finding regarding how people like you navigate these places?
For me, the biggest aha was realizing that the sheer size of the garage wasn't the primary obstacle for people like you.
Mm.
You might think it's just too big,
Yes,
right?
that's what I'd assume.
But the real hurdle was the incorrect assumptions people were making about the numbering systems, that mismatch between expectation and reality.
Mm.
By directly addressing this disconnect in the new map design, the researchers achieved that significant reduction in confusion and wasted time.
Mm.
It really highlights the importance of understanding user expectations and mental models when designing any kind of informational system for you. You have to design for how people think it should work, or at least make the actual system incredibly clear.
That's a great point. It wasn't about making the garage smaller, but about making it make more sense to the people using it. So, as we wrap up, let's leave you with a little food for thought. Think about how often we encounter poorly designed informational systems in our daily lives, not just in parking garages, obviously, but in airports, hospitals, websites, all sorts of environments.
Yeah, everywhere.
What other seemingly simple spaces or systems could be made so much more intuitive and user-friendly for you by applying a similar user-centered design approach to what we've discussed today?
That's a good question.
Maybe the principles we've explored extend far beyond just finding your car and touch on how you interact with the world around you. This connects to the field of environmental psychology, doesn't it? Which studies how our surroundings affect our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Absolutely. It's all connected. If you're intrigued by the science of how we navigate and interact with our surroundings, or if you're interested in the principles of user-centered design, we highly recommend looking up the original study by Mengkong Zheng, or maybe exploring other research in the field of environmental psychology. It's a really fascinating area that reveals just how profoundly the design of our environments, even something as mundane as a parking garage, impacts our cognitive processes and our overall experiences. It's all design, really.